All right, so that was the lead into today's topic, which is about restoring relationships. Stop it. All right, so we're going to start with the warning. Take this time to explain that this lesson and the lessons thereafter are not based on any one individual, either in this assembly locally or abroad. These lessons were not developed by myself alone. Yes, the Father has something, if not all, to do with them. If these lessons hit certain points that you feel or believe have something to do with you, all praise to the Father. Take that knowledge and apply the solution to your life. Take everything personal, but do not take offense and miss the message that is being given to help solidify your salvation. Rules. Please keep your mic muted except when asking or answering a question. Use the mic to speak. There's a feature on Zoom in the meeting room where you can raise your hand if you have a question or a statement. Also here in the assembly, if you have a question or statement, raise your hand and speak into the mic for everyone to hear after you've been called on. All questions and answers and statements must be on the topic. You can only answer one time per question or statement. You have 60 seconds to ask or answer a question. If you pass your 60-second window, Caleb will mute you. For those that are in the room, you also have 60 seconds to ask or answer a question. There are mics that will be passed or have been passed around that can be used to ask or answer those questions. All statements in the room must be limited to 20 seconds. The microphones are to be used to be shared with others. The microphones are to be used. The microphones are to be used to share with others that may not hear you online. The Maureen has 40 seconds for statements to help guide the lesson. Please no one abuse the time. These rules are due to time and the recording of the lessons. These are live teachings. We must give the Moray enough time to complete the lesson. This will be mixed with discussions to help build one another up. Please do not abuse the time for a second time. All right. All right. So we heard the song. Now let's read about it. In Luke 15:11, 32. And he said, I should make you read this, Moray fans. And there was a man who had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. He was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I here perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. And he rose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead, and he is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Now his oldest son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has received him back safe and sound. But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him, but he answered his father, Look, these many years I have served you, and I have never disobeyed your command, that you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him. He said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. And he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. All right, so that's the story that matches the song that we started with. For those on YouTube, that song was a Fred Hammond song about the prodigal son. All right, so let's take a look at 11 through 13. And he said, A certain man had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portions of goods falling to me. And he divided his livelihood between them. And not many days after, the younger son, having gathered all together, went away to a distant country and there wasted his goods with loose living. This is the scripture's version, so it's a little bit different from the original one that we read the first time, as far as certain words. But notice which of the two sons wanted his portion. It was the younger one, right? So, question for the group. What are some characteristics of young people? I know some of us got to think back more ways longer than others to when we were young. Caleb, I was not looking at you. I was looking back. Caleb, it's okay.
I was gonna say dumb, but I don't want to say that.
Say it. Say it how you feel it. It's me.
Yeah, dumb. Thinks too quick, moves before they think.
Okay.
You know, that kind of thing.
All right. Hello, y'all. Nabat, and then Yusuf.
A lot of one instant gratification.
Instant gratification.
Impulsive.
Impulsive. Okay. All right. Who was first? Now, Amanda, go ahead.
Ignorance and greed, curiosity.
You said breeds curiosity?
I said ignorance, greed, and curiosity.
Between greed and curiosity. Thank you. Toda. Yahusha and Dawood.
Yeah, poor decision making.
Okay. Mishael.
My grandfather always said that young people, they got to make it over Fool's Hill.
Hello, y'all. All right. Go ahead, Aki. Hold on. You got one in the room? Go ahead, Aki.
It's my money and I want it now.
Yep.
I would say that a couple of things. Some of them, they're spoiled. And based off of this here, it's a representation of the two houses, right? So it's talking about the younger one being Ephraim and Yehuda being the older, and how Ephraim, how he acted, respond. I guess if you are you doing that part, Dennis?
Not yet. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So, you know, in this here, it kind of represents how the two houses and how the father loves, and when one comes home, how Yehuda, how he felt vexed because of the other tribe there, but the father showing that they were dead. And through the sacrifice, he's now come home. Correct. And so in layman's terms, I would say that the younger one basically is the one that really was wild. And for that reason, why he left and thought he could do things on his own.
The Benedetto house.
Shalom, yes. So very influential, like the characteristic of youth, I guess is what was the question, is that they're very influential. Easily influenced, I guess I should say.
Yep. Everyone's answer was good. So, all right, unwise, looking for more, unsatisfied, staying under dad's covering, right? They want to go out and venture and see things for themselves. No matter how much you tell them not to do that, they still got to go out and try it themselves. All right. So, it sounds like a lot of us at one point in our lives, right?
Right. That's right.
But look in the parentheses, there's always parentheses. Or some of us still are doing that even now, if we're truly honest with ourselves. All right. Let's look at 14 to 16. And when he had spent all these, there arose a severe scarcity of food throughout that land. They began to be in need. So, as many young people do, they decide to try to figure out the solution to the problem on their own. So this is what he decides to do. He went and joined himself to one of the citizens of that country, and he sent him to his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to fill his stomach with the pods which the pigs were eating, and no one gave to him. All right. Exodus 34, 12 through 16. We read it every week, right? Take care, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of that land to which you go, lest it become a snare in your midst. You shall tear down their altars and break their pillars and cut down their asherim. You shall worship no other El, for Yahuwah, whose name is jealous a jealous El. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of that land. And then what happens? When they whore after their mighty ones and sacrifice to their mighty ones, and you were invited, you eat of his sacrifice, you take of their daughters for your sons, and their daughters whore after their mighty ones, and make your sons whore after their mighty ones, right? So just because he was there and had decided to leave, it probably wasn't the best idea to just say, oh, well, this is where I am, so I'm going to take after them, right? Probably not something that you want to do. But how many times have we, in our impulsive decisions, left where we were, realized it probably wasn't the best thing to do, and instead of immediately turning back, we try to walk it out on our own, right? But when we're doing that, are we using the wisdom that we have already up to that point? Oftentimes when we leave, we try to forget where we came from, right? We want to do things a whole new different way. It's not the wise thing to do.
Pride kicks in. I can't go back now.
Say that part. Say it in the microphone.
Yeah, my pride kicks in, so I can't go back. I done told them a piece of my mind before I left.
Right? Right?
I'm gonna show them how to do it. I'm gonna show them how to do it.
Remember, the Mashiach just telling the story here, so this is the abridged version. You know, he didn't tell him how he left, right? Yeah. He didn't tell him what he told him to kiss on his way out. Exactly. Just give me my stuff, right? All right. So he joined himself with the citizens of that country. Probably not a wise idea. So he's now no longer in a place of provision because he decided that he had to up and leave. He's eating pods that are given to animals for their food. I'm going to get into that. Now, would he be doing that if he was still in his dad's house? He would never have to stoop so low, right? But he was youthful and quick and decided he saw something he wanted and he had to have it right away. All right, he had a question about those pods. Karotion is a Greek word. It's a little horn. It's the name of a fruit, Cartonia silca, or caro tree, also called John's bread, from the notion that its pods, which resemble those of the locust, constituted the food of the Baptist. This fruit was shaped like a horn and has a sweet taste. But here's the part that I wanted to note. It was and is used not only for fattening swine, but it's an article of food by the lower classes. The lower classes. Did he start off in the lower class? He would have never gotten himself there, never had to deal with that, had he decided to stay where he was, right? And I also was struck by how it's referred to a locust. Well, where's one of the first places we hear about locusts? In the microphone, because it doesn't count.
Egypt.
Egypt, right? Was that a good thing, these locusts?
Low.
Low, right? So just like he should have thought about the covenant and who he was not supposed to join himself with, he also should have remembered a little bit about that back in the day as he's eating these pods, right? All right. So when we're young, again, we're young in behavior, not age, because we can find ourselves acting young regardless of how old we are, right? When we're young and foolish, we walk away from the covering of our relationships. We lose our status. We operate in a lower class, right? He's looking for a provision that this country doesn't regard him where he was, and they offered him no help, right? And also notice how the scarcity of food comes at the perfect time. For those that didn't pick up the sarcasm, I put it in there. So when does the scarcity of food come? What's that? Describe that perfect time for me. It's the beginning of verse 14. It's not your question. I don't do your questions.
Spent all this money.
In the microphone. Go ahead, Ak, you got the microphone. Him first. He has the microphone in his hand. He's following the rules.
It says when he had spent all.
Right. So of course, the scarcity comes when he's dead broke. He got nothing to do about it, right? It just so happened, right? That's when the scarcity came. Although I personally don't believe in coincidences, it's okay. But also want you to notice that we move out the covering from our relationships, right? And I use that word purposely because it's not always a father-son relationship, right? There's many other relationships that we have in our lives. So I always want to be mindful as we're reading these things that we don't just make it about the characters in the word, right?
That's what I do.
How can we apply it to ourselves? Well, you know, I would never do that to my dad. Well, who else were you in a relationship with that you abruptly, harshly, for no warrant, decided that you're going to walk away from? All right. So, 17 to 19 says, having come to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread and enough to spare, and I'm here perishing with hunger? So he woke up. I'm going to go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against the heavens and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So now it kind of hits him, right? I need to do something about this. This is not where I want to be. Yeah, he figured out the help real quick. All right. Let's take a look at Leviticus 26, 41 to 42. And that also I have walked contrary unto them, and have brought them, accepted the punishment of their iniquity. And then will I remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Ishak, and also my covenant with typo, in the land of their enemies. If the uncircumcised hearts be humbled, what's going on? All right, so basically, there's a typo in there somewhere. But you have to accept your punishment, right? And then he will heal the land. If you don't think that you've done anything wrong, you can't expect to return. Yeah, it got all messed up. I'm not sure what happened. All right, I got a second example though, so it's all good. So, 2 Chronicles. If I shut up the heavens and there's no rain, or if I command the locust, again, that locust again, to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, kind of like a scarcity of food perhaps, and my people upon whom my name is called shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their evil ways, then I shall hear from the heavens and forgive their sin and heal their land. Nope, go ahead.
So we could safely say then, applying as you're sharing, is some of us could be going through the same thing, and sometimes you gotta let them humble themselves, right? And they'll learn how to go pray and seek the Father, and then in that, Father hears them. Then when they come to you, they come with a new heart. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked about that a couple lessons ago. Sometimes you can tell somebody they're wrong doing all they want, but until they walk it out, until they live it and it hits them, it's just on the surface. Again, say again? Oh, stop it.
Tired of eating chitlins.
I'm actually going through this with one of my born people.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's part of life. One of the youthful ones. Caleb's no longer youth. He's old now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you old player. Sorry to break it to you.
Three behind him.
All right.
Sorry, but
But again, I want you to take a look at the posture that the son takes. Once he not only decides that he needs to go back, right? He understands that he has to make it right where he came from. But look at his countenance on how he understands how he has to return. All right? He seeks to return with humility, a contrite heart. He didn't expect to just assume his previous status, right? The next part, he expected a consequence. It's like, he might take me back, but I know I'm gonna have to go through something, right? How many times have we realized that we did somebody wrong, and they're like, well, the word says forgive, and we just go straight, rushing back like it's all good.
that's right. That's how we're supposed to do it.
Right? They gotta forgive me, so here I am, forgive me. The word says you got to, right? Forgive those we forgive each other, right? Right. But again, you have to accept the punishment. You have to expect that you're gonna have to recompense what you did, right? He accepted his fate. He didn't come back to his father with a sense of entitlement, expecting to pick right up where he left off. In his eyes, he had to earn his place back. And how did he do that? He sought to be a servant. He wanted to actually have acts of service, which is actual restitution. When you go back to get right with somebody, there's work that you have to do. If you're not willing to put in the work, then you're really not seeking true restoration. You might want to be back in their presence, back among them, but you're not really healing the situation. You'll be around, but they really won't have that same relationship you had before. The commentary, right? All right, so he comes with him humbly, right? So let's see where the humility gets him. See if it all worked out. All right, Luke 15-20. And having risen, he went to his father. And then what happens next? And while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. All right. He fell on his neck. Yeah, like my son's teammate did to me when I saw him and was mad at him for beating my son. All right? So I'm going to ask a question. It's not on the slide. Why do you think that the father was moved with such compassion when he saw his son? I'll come to you after Yuka said.
Because he missed him.
He missed him? That was it? Okay. Caleb and then Ima.
Well, I would assume that since he's his son, he still loved him, and he was happy to know that he's alive. And even though he knows he did the stupid stuff, that it didn't kill him, that he managed to survive and come back, and they can restore the relationship now.
Okay, now let me say this. I'm going to table it this way. Fatherhood's not always about provision and money, right? But however, he set the kid off in a good spot, right?
Yes.
So is it safe to say that we could probably consider him a Tob father?
Yes.
Well, sometimes I got to love you from afar, player.
Yeah.
Just because you want to come back don't mean that I'm ready to take you back. Right? So just because I missed you doesn't mean that I'm going to come run and hug you when I see you. All right? Just a thought. Go ahead, Ima. What were you going to say?
I'm going to say something at the end, okay?
I got you. And you'll have unlimited time. I got you. Yo, is that Namana? I'm echoing in the room. My bad. Namana, is that you? Go ahead.
He was glad to see his son to other than seeing that his son was alive, make things right with his son, to reestablish what was broken, to heal it, to love his son. He fell on his son's neck. That means he cried. He hugged his son to know that his son came back to him. And
okay, told us this.
I'm going to
I was still talking while he muted me. Caleb, give me a break.
60 seconds.
I'm going to take it and just apply it to myself. I would just be glad that whatever I taught them came to his senses, and that he came home. So what I taught him in his youth, he had to mature while he was out there. He had to learn some things.
Hopefully.
And it all came back, and he decided to come home.
We have one more. Who else is online? My apologies. Misha. No, that's you. Yahusha Nabu. Go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing. So I was going to say the same thing she just said. Go to
Mishael.
No, yeah, I would believe that the father in this parable is happy that he's seen the growth, the change in his son, from his son, just looking from going from a place of transaction to a place of transformation.
Toda.
Online, Eva Martinez said he remembers his attitude when he left, and so when he came back, he knew he must really need him now because he was in the state of humility. Now bridges can be mended.
Humility, right? So if we continue reading, it's not just so much that he missed him, right? He had compassion towards him. He recognized the step that the son took. Now think about it. I set you up, right? You got everything that you need to be out there. What must it take for you to suddenly want to come back to me? Right? Go ahead.
What was the question again?
What was going through Dad's head when he saw his son? Why was he so eager to welcome him back? And none of these are wrong answers. I just want us to think.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's see. He really missed him.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I knew it. I knew it.
About them 40 lashes you was talking, right?
Yeah,
I'll get you on the next question, Yahushua.
So one of the things we got to think about is he knew what he instilled in his son.
Mm-hmm.
So for his son to leave, and when he saw him coming back, he's believing what things that he has placed in him is now coming alive, so that he can embrace him, and he saw that within him.
Multiple mics are on at the same time, please. All right, no worries. Again, Dad goes out to run to him, and notice that Dad saw the son before the son got close. The son's still a far away from him. Oh, stop playing. All right. So the son takes the first step, right? I think there's a slide missing. There we go. All right. So did they agree to meet halfway? All right. So the son takes the first step, but then Dad closes the gap and runs out to meet him. The one who was offended actually wants reconciliation. Dad had every right to be like, forget that guy. He can stay out there a little bit longer. I'm not ready to take him back yet, right? But the dad wanted conciliation just as much as the son did, which means what? Humbleness goes both ways. For true restoration, both parties have to have a level of humbleness. Dad saw him attempting to return and was ready and willing to accept him. Now, again, based on the way that he greeted him, it wasn't like, all right, you can come back. If you have to, you got nowhere to, you can come back home, right? He was welcoming and looking to actually truly restore what they had before versus, all right, he's back. I guess I got no choice but to take him back. Dad actually was looking forward to the reconciliation. All right. Again, take something else about notice the dad's stance. He didn't wait for him to be near to accept him back, right? Same way Yahuwah, he doesn't want us to be perfect in order to turn around and get right back with him, to make the steps. He just wants us to teshub, and he will come back and meet us. He doesn't expect you to be perfect. How many times have we found ourselves doing something that we know the Most High can't stand? We know that we're separated from him, right? It's like, ooh, you know, he'll never forgive me for this. He won't take me back. I can't restore that situation. And then we linger in that horrible place way longer than we need to be, because we're expecting that we have to be at a certain level before he'll hear our cry. That's when you want to apply, he knows my heart. That's when you want to say he knows that you're true about your repentance. If you're truly doing it, he's also going to know if you're not, right? But you don't want to have to linger in the wrongness any more than you have to because you're afraid to return. All right, so you meet halfway, and then once we get back into communication, then we discuss the terms of what the true reconciliation is going to be. All right. Too often we let our pride get in the way of our reconciliation, right? How many of us, we put things into our own head about where we need to be before he'll take us back?
That's right. That's right.
Part of a broken ruach is getting yourself out of the way. Because if you're still trying to reconcile on your terms, you're not truly broken. You're going to start making assumptions about what the other person wants from you before you gave them a chance to figure it out. Before you even gave them a chance to take you back, you've already assumed that they won't. So now you're in charge of the situation. That's never going to lead to true reconciliation. It's actually going to make the gap wider than it needs to be when we're supposed to do what like the dad? We're supposed to close the gap. not do things on our side to make the gap even wider. Say again? Finish. Go with the whole thought there for me, please.
Yeah, you should never anticipate what it's going to look like when you're coming back together with somebody. Meaning that you've already, as you were sharing earlier, you have a whole skit in your head as to how it's going to look. And if it doesn't go that way, then I knew it, I told you so. It should just be simply, I'm just going to come with my repentive, humble, truthful heart, and I'm hoping this person comes the same way. And when those two are there, then Yah comes in the midst of that and brings you back together.
So, what you want to say? I think you had something. Just pick up the microphone and say it.
When I was coming out of college, some of the guys I'm really cool with, my football homies, we had this thing that we used to call for, now, it was regarding, I'll just put it like this. Sometimes certain people can create scenarios in their head, and then that goes and leads to other things that actually really don't exist, but then they actually make it that it exists. We used to call it thought cancer. So you, instead of just dealing with what's going on, or don't even overthink it, just go ahead, you end up starting to create a scenario in your mind that's not actually there, but you think that it's there. And so you start to act like it is there, and you create an issue or create a problem that really isn't a problem. It really is an issue because it doesn't really exist in reality. So, yeah.
Toda. He missed him. How do you, what's the best way to defeat cancer?
Cut it out.
What do you have to do first? Before you can cut it out, you got to do what? You got to catch it early. You got to catch it early. So those thought cancers, as soon as you start seeing it develop, you can't just let it spread. You got to get to the point of it as soon as possible. This thing is not like if you pause for 30 seconds, buttons just stop working. All right. So how many times have you delayed restoration based on parameters that you set? And look at this. The whole time the other person is already over it. They're already ready to let bygones be bygones. Look at the next one. How many times have we let fear of how they will punish us cause us to decide to punish ourselves?
What you say?
Well, I don't want to deal with that, so I'm just going to stay away. This is what they're expecting of me, so I'm going to come up with my own remedy for it, so I don't really have to address the issue. Is that going to actually lead to restoration?
No.
Separation and not restoration for sure, right? But again, it's us not humbling ourselves. That's not what humbleness is. If we're trying to make things happen our way, that's the opposite of humbleness. All right. Let's continue on with the story, right? 21 to 24. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against the heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And bring the fattened calf here and slaughter it, and let us eat and rejoice. Because this son of mine was dead and is alive again, and he was lost and is found. And they began to rejoice, right? So, dead and alive, we can keep that in the context of us and the Father, right? When we deal with sin, sin leads to death, right? Lost and found is about us, our relationships with each other. So again, don't just read this and think about it's solely about us returning to the Father and not about how we interact with each other, right? It's both parts. So, and then they began to rejoice. It's slow, goodness gracious. No.
Yes.
No. It was Kanan. He did it. No, I'm just playing. It wasn't him. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Slow down.
All right. He was considered dead, but is now alive. His humility and willingness to change led him to be exalted where he was before he left, right? But without that, he's not getting back to that same status. But because he came with the right heart, the dad could accept him and ignore all the other stuff and be to a place where now you can just simply come back. You don't have to come back as a servant, right? But if you had come back with a stank attitude, you think that's how dad would have took him? No. Nope. If somebody comes to you and seeks to get it right, but their attitude isn't quite right, are you just going to let bygones be bygones? That's the way you intended it, but now there's other things that we're going to have to work out now. Now it's going to be a longer process, right? All right. So again, do we want to stay dead or do we want to live? We want to live, right? Do we want our relationships to remain dead or do we want to bring them back to life? We want to bring them back to life, right? All right. So we want life, but are we willing to do what it takes? For example, there's those of us in the room who were told to make changes to our eating and exercise habits, right? I'm speaking to the Akeem because I know them. So some of us, and I put us, were more successful than others at making these changes to our diet and our exercises, right? Some of us say that we want to live, but we're in our own way, right? So just because we say it, that's not good enough, right? We have to do the work. We got to do the work. Now, all right, Akeem, those of us that know that we had things that we were supposed to change diet and exercise-wise, right? It started off great. But then it didn't quite stay that way on the long run, right? That same fervor, right? So now, let's just say that you have someone that you've truly, truly offended. And it's not going to be an easy process to make that restitution. They said, hey, I need to see this, this, and this, and this, right? But you were so happy to have the opportunity to get it right, as you rightfully should. You couldn't wait to do those things. But then it was taking a little longer than you wanted to get that solidness back. And now you're not putting that same effort in to fully get to that restorative place. You can't do that, right? You got to stay through the whole entire process until it's truly mended. So think about something that you've ever used super glue on something, right? We're not talking Elmer's glue. You take 2 pieces of paper, bam, right? It sticks. Something that you put together and it tells you that it has the cure for 4, 5, 6 hours, right? If you try to check on that thing after an hour, it's going to fall apart again. And then once it falls apart, you got to start the whole process all over again. You got to add more to the timer, right? We don't want to do that. We want to stick to the process and walk it all the way out. All right. Continuing on with the story. Luke 15, now we're at 25 through 28. His older son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. And having called one of the servants, he asked what this meant. And he said to him, well, your brother has come, and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf because he received him back in health. And he was wroth and would not go in. So this is the loving father. Now he came out to check on this one too. His father came out and pleaded with him. The haters are back. Got to have the haters. Go ahead, Aki.
So I just noticed something. The party was going on and he was in the field working. Why wasn't he invited?
Well,
because it says here he was like, what's going on? So he didn't even know.
That doesn't mean that once he got there, he wouldn't be welcome. If you throw a party that starts at 8 and I don't go to work till 12, can I still come? And clearly, this party was no secret. He could hear it from the field. You just got to, when you come home, the party will be there waiting for you. Right? So you got haters in the back of this room too. Look at them. All right. And answering he said to his father, see, these many years I have been serving you, and I have never transgressed a command of yours. But to me, you have never given a young goat so I could rejoice with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with whores, you slaughtered the fattened calf for him. Then he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. We had to rejoice and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive, and was lost and is found. Yirmiyahu 3:6-9. Yeah, that will make your money go fast. Stop it. And Yahuwah said to me in the days of Yeshayahu the sovereign, have you seen what backsliding Israel has done? She has gone up on every high mountain and under every green tree, and there committed whoring. And it came to be through her frivolous whoring that she defiled the land and committed adultery, not sexual, with stones and with wood. They was not stuffing with stones and wood, right? So, this is not the only type of whoring that this guy was doing. So again, remember, he broke the command by joining himself to this other nation, right? He was doing all kinds of whoring, every type of whoring you could imagine. All right, so frivolous here has the similar understanding as the loose living we mentioned earlier. Consider the younger son whoring or being unfaithful to Yahuwah and joining himself with that other nation. But when we incorrectly separate ourselves from each other, we are unfaithful to that relationship, whether it be a friendly relationship or a familiar relationship. And now that relationship needs to be restored, right? So if we're supposed to be a unit, we're supposed to have fellowship with each other, there needs to be a reason why we separate. There needs to be a reason why we're not just getting along. It can't be something trivial, because when you do that, now you're in the wrong, just like the son that went off whoring. And now it's on you to go back and do the restoration part, right? That's why I say it's being unfaithful. You're not truthful to the relationship. You can't be a fair weather friend. You can't be only down with somebody when things are going your way, when it benefits you. You have to have a reason to separate yourself from these things, right? All right, in answering, he said to his father, back to the haters, see, these many years I've been serving you, and I've never transgressed the command. But to me, you never gave a goat, so I could rejoice with my friends. But then 31, then he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. Right? Say it in the microphone.
You could have got a goat anytime you wanted.
So, again, this son was not denied a goat. He didn't say, when I asked you for one, you told me no. He had access to it. He just didn't take advantage of it. That's not dad's fault, right? Everything that the other son had, just like you said, that son, all I have is yours, same thing applied for both sons. And the goat was there for you the whole time. He was not happy to regain his brother because the brother came back to dad and him. Dad wasn't the only one that gained the brother. But why? He was too busy feeling unappreciated. You did that for him. Why you never did it for me, right? He really wanted to see his brother punished for what he did.
That's right. That's right.
He was furious that his brother got to return. All he saw was frustration and anger towards his brother. He lost track of appreciating what he actually had. Go ahead, Akeem.
Would this be like synonymous where it says that Yahuwah provoked Israel to jealousy with the other nations?
I would take that.
All right.
I wouldn't say synonymous because they're not the same, but similar. Similar, yeah. There's a connection, yeah. All right, so remember, all that I have is yours. The son forgot the place of provision that he was in. He's probably thinking things like, what's my reward for being righteous?
What?
That's a good question, right? I know I'm not the only one that's ever heard of that question before. You see somebody else prospering and like, why I don't got that? I'm doing right. Why do they get to do that? I'm doing right too. How many times have you been talked out of giving someone a second chance that they truly deserved? That's rhetorical. Don't even answer that. Don't answer it now because I want you to go home and actually think about it. If you answer it now, you let yourself off the hook. Now, this one you can talk about. How many times has someone given you a second chance And you can just feel how much others resent you for getting a second chance. Mm-hmm. Oh, I felt that before. Like, oh, you gonna, after what they did, you gonna take them back? You gonna forgive them for that? Mm-hmm. The haters. The haters. Yeah, but see, when I say it that way, you're like, oh yeah, never. Oh yeah, at least 26 times. Yeah, about 26 times. Yeah. All right. But let's look at that second part though. If I decide that me and Lamar are gonna work out our friendship, does anyone else in the room get to hate on that? No. But we all admit it has happened, right? So there are times that you might see from the outside looking in where people are trying to restore things. And you're like, man, you're stupid. I wouldn't get that person a second chance. I wouldn't get that person a second chance. They did it to you once, they'll do it again. It's not really your place. It's not really your place. Now, if we're talking physical harm, second story, you got to protect people, right?
Hit you once, they hit you twice.
That's a whole other thing, right? Right.
Choke you once, they choke you twice.
But if those two decide that they're going to try to work this out, you got to give them the opportunity to do so. Right, you should try to be helpful to the process, right? All right, here's something else to consider. How easy is it to take for granted what you have because it's just too consistent? It's too steady. It's too unwavering. How many of us has taken a loved one for granted because we lost track of what they do every day because we wanted something lavish on a special day? The son had this whole life set for him, and he mad because he didn't get a party. He got a party, why I ain't get no party? But the party was right there for him the whole time. He just chose not to do one. Everything he had was right there, and he totally lost track of that because he was too busy hating on his brother. You don't want to do that. Because now, not only he lost time with his brother, and he lost time with his dad. They were all at the party, wait, man, I can't wait till your brother comes home. I got my boys back together again, the three of us rocking tight again. And now I gotta wait for that to happen because I gotta go console you again. And now me and you gotta work it right. And I gotta hope that you're understanding what I'm saying to you. Otherwise, now I gotta beef with my second son. Right? All because this son was ungrateful. All right, so some tips about restoring relationships, which was today's topic. Don't make the mistakes of youth. Be so eager to leave home, always looking for another adventure. When you recognize you were wrong, be humble in your return and recognize you may have some work to do to make things right. You got to be willing to be a servant, right? When you have been wronged, consider the loved one. Getting them back oftentimes means more than whatever issue you had in the first place. When they make that step to reconcile, you take 2 steps to meet them. Again, how are you going to meet them? Meet them like the dad, with love. You're not worried about payback. You're not worried about vengeance, which belongs to you anyway. You want to be grateful and rejoice at the chance to get it right. And also, you want to have compassion. Don't intentionally make it difficult for them to return. Come on now, tell the truth. We want to put 87,000 stipulations on what this person has to do to get back in your good standing again. No, nobody can do all that. Nobody can do all that. Right? And so if they humble themselves enough to try to work it out, then you have to be reasonable in your expectation of them to get the restoration. All right. So any questions, thoughts, or comments about today's topic?
How can I say this?
Take all your time.
I had 2 sons. I had a son, the first one would do pretty much what the first one would do. He would stay at home. He did what he's supposed to do. And I had a prodigal son. Constantly, I became I am mom. I had these two boys. And when you play that song, it hit me because my baby boy was that prodigal son. He died at 25 years old. For some reason, the day before, I reached for my phone and the phone just went to him. And we had a talk. We had talks now and then. It's not like the prodigal son, he was always gone, but we had phone talks and everything. So he made me a promise that he will come and see me the next day. My son didn't make it to see me that day. So it reminded me of that day. That's why I had to get up and leave, because that song is real. And so I was glad that I did get to talk to him that day before he passed away. He was inadvertently poisoned. I'm not saying that the young man who I always have told my son, when you go out, if you leave your drink, do not pick it back up and drink it. And they called me, his fiance called me and said that she couldn't find him. And I stayed, and she went, and someone called her, and she called me, one of his friends, and said that they thought he was asleep. And come to find out he was poisoned with someone else's drink, because my son was completely, he got in trouble just like any other child, but he had got himself together. So I didn't get the chance to see him, only when I buried him, only when I had to put him in the ground. So I know about the prodigal son, and it hit. And my big son, my first son, he always did what I said, and always did, but he had his brother back. Mom, he know you love him. He just need to get it together. So that's why it hit me. So that's what I wanted to say. It's hard to pick sides when you have two sons. You love them. I love my sons both the same. I always iterate that. I don't love one more than the other. So it's so my son Sean, he became comforter to me, and he went on about his life, and he's still in my life, and he always talk about his brother, because he missed his brother. It was like this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was no party or anything like that. And
Thought up for Sharon. I want to just say two things. The first thing I want to say is hello to Yahuwah, and Maury Kanan, and I believe Maury Yashun were here at the time. I started not to play the song. I asked him to get it for me, prepared for today. And in all truthfully, even y'all saw it today, every time I play that song, I cry. And I said, well, I don't want to be crying before I got to teach. I'm not going to play it today. And they said, no, you got to play it. So hello, y'all, for that. Because if the song doesn't get played, you don't get to share that. And I don't get to share this. And I pray that you can receive it, or whoever hears it can receive it. You ran out to meet him, just like the father did in the story. Whether you got to fall on his neck or not, he said, Mom, I'm going to call you. And you were willing and ready and able and willing to take that call because that's where your heart was. So you did just like the father in the story, whether you got to walk it out or not. That's all that I had to share for that. Toda, appreciate you. Go ahead, Aki. We got a question in the room.
Aki, go back to the last slide. All right, so when you was on this slide, you was talking about stipulations, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm trying to find out how can I apply, like, I basically like a heathen, you know. Can I have stipulations for a heathen?
Well, if you want truly restoration with someone, right? I don't know why you would want to restore with the heathen, but if that's the state they're in, and you want to restore back to a place they were before they got to that state, there's always going to be something that the other person has to do. You just don't want to make it this giant, unachievable laundry list that's unrealistic. Because for true restoration to happen, it's going to take time, and they're going to have to show that they're truly accountable for what they did, that they truly changed, and they truly want to restore. Like I said, forgiveness and coming back isn't just, hey, I'm back. You want that tightness, that closeness to the relationship again. So there will be stipulations, but the point that I was making here was that you don't want to be unreasonable in what you expect from somebody when you're trying to work it out.
Plus, you got to think about there are different stipulations between, let's say, someone that's in the walk and someone that's out of the walk. So someone that's in the walk, you have to do this because the word tells you to do that, not because if we want to be in obedience with the Father, then we definitely have to do it, because if we don't forgive theirs, He won't forgive ours. When it comes to someone that's considered a heathen, that's outside the walk, not doing the commandments, nothing like that, but wants to communicate with you, we don't have to make that hard. We can just keep our righteous way that we are and then go from there. But outside of that, there's not much you can do, because they're not held to that standard that you're held to. And so they can't take advantage of that neither.
Mm-hmm. All right, anyone else have anything they want to share or ask?
Shalom, shalom.
I didn't see who that is. Oh, then Yahoo, go ahead, Aki.
Shalom, shalom, Aki. Maury. So I just wanted to just share really quickly that song and this lesson alone. I needed this lesson for a few different reasons. I know some of them will make more sense probably in the days to come, but definitely I needed this to hear this lesson. The song in and of itself, just to share my quick testimony, that song was a song that Yahuwah used when I did not know his name. And for me too as well, Moray, that song always touches something in me, because I remember how wretched I was and how far away from the Most High I was. Excuse me, I'm trying to hold myself together. Even now, because I remember there would be days when I would be, by myself, things would hit me in my life, and I, really realized earlier on that it was me who made my bed, and I was, I accepted that responsibility, the things that I was doing with my children, and having children out of wedlock and those things, and so those things I had to deal with those things. But that song was one song that Yahuwah used with me early on, and he had to bring me back through the only way that I knew that he knew I would get back to him. So he brought me back through Christianity to show me what was wrong, what I wasn't doing or fulfilling that he wanted me to fulfill. And he gave me the understanding. But I remember hearing that song on one day, and it broke me so much to I pictured myself, I could literally see in my mind me at the throne of the Most High and actually holding on to his leg and not wanting to let go and asking him to not allow me, don't leave me to myself. And it was just one of those things, and I heard in my mind, before that, I heard in my mind that if you don't come now, you won't make it back. And that just that just took me overboard. And so I'm grateful because we all need a reminder of where Yahuwah has brought us from. Because sometimes we get so caught up in what's going on around us in the world, and there are times that we don't want to do certain things because we don't always feel we don't feel like we're worthy to be in Yahuwah's service. But because we forget so quickly of where he's brought us from, and that he's still polishing us, and he's still working it out for us. He's still smoothing those sharp edges and pulling all of those things out of us that need to be pulled out daily. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the song, Aki, that you listened to, the heat of Yahuwah, and you played it. It definitely was a barakah, blessing for me. I just want to say Todah for your obedience, and Todah Ribah to Yahuwah for laying on your heart to do what you did on today. I mean,
Hallelujah. All right. All right. Prepare your hearts and minds as we close out in prayer. Gotcha.
Our hearts and minds clear. Baruch Hashem Abba Yahuwah Eloheinu melech haolam. Abba Yahuwah Todah Rabbah for this lesson. Todah Rabbah Abba Yahuwah for restoring us back to you and welcoming us with open arms. For seeing our turmoil, seeing our affliction, and cleaning us up. And Abba Yahuwah allowing us not to operate with pride and arrogance and haughtiness, but to come back to you in meekness and humility. And that we continue in these things so that Abba Yahuwah, you can continue to wash us up and cleanse us so that we can be good and trustworthy servants of you. We thank you for this lesson and the hearts that it has touched and the work that you are doing in our lives. We praise you, we exalt you, we magnify you for the food that we're about to receive. Thank you for the hands that prepared it. May it be a nourishment to our bodies. And Abba Yahuwah, as we go into Shabbat and go throughout the week, may we be a barakah to others for the expansion of your kingdom, and help us be a delight to your nostrils, a sweet smell and fragrance to your being. In the name of Yahushua, Hallelujah, Amen.